Hello, this is Greg Allison with Green Gregs, coming to you on the morning of the 4th of February, 2021. Time on deck is 03:47 hours Central Standard Time. Okay, what we're going to talk about is the threat of nuclear war increasing, and also maybe the prospects of peace. So there's some people that's kind of talking about a plan for peace, but from my read, they really don't have any plan. So it's kind of thin. So, but we're going to cover that. You know, guys, ladies, gentlemen, I tell you all the time about these potential threats. I talk to you about them. I tell you that there are so many threats coming from the outside for international World War III type situations, for things that could threaten our power grid. I talk to you about our internal strife. I talk to you about what could our economy could go bad, our magnetosphere make us more vulnerable to the sun. We got a lot of stuff going on right now. It's like a confluence of things that could really cause a stroke economy. The Great Reset. There's just so much stuff out there right now that you really need to get ready. You need to prepare, and you need to use my videos to tell your family and friends, guys, you need to get ready. You need to prepare. The more of you that prepare, make more of your neighbors, your friends, your family, the better off we are collectively. So, we'll all be the squirrels and the ants instead of the grasshoppers that die in the winter. So, best thing is grow your own food. Check out right now. It's time to get seeds. Go to True Leaf Market. Links below. And also, I got a special 25%. I got a special for 20% off. Excuse me, for 25-year long-term storage food. It's very lightweight. See, which means it's easy to store. It's easy to pop this top up and throw these pouches in your backpack if you need to bug out. But you can also use these on the counters or wherever you want to store them for long-term storage, because it's 25-year food that is still just as good 25 years from now, and it will last even longer. But it's awesome stuff. You get 2,000 calories a day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner breakfast, lunch, and dinner will make you a winner. And you can check on the link to My Patriot Supply, and it goes into all of the kind of prepping supplies, including number 10 Ken stuff, if you want to get that for storage in your bug-in situation in your home. And air, water filtration, camp, things you can use in your camp if you're bugging out. A lot of good stuff at My Patriot Supply. Go to prepwithgreg.com to get that special, prepwithgreg.com, and then click the My Patriot Supply logo to find the other deals that are there. So it's awesome stuff. All right, with that said, let's get back into our story here. Just so happens that in the February edition of the Proceedings, which is the Naval Institute's monthly magazine, Stratcom Commander Admiral Charles Richard, he warned that China and Russia had begun to aggressively challenge the international norms in such a way that we've not seen these since the height of the Cold War. And he went on to talk about cyber attacks, threats from space, as well as the advanced arms that these countries are coming up with. And I've done several videos in the past where I've talked about some of the stuff that Russia's coming up with. And Russia's coming up with some really scary weaponry. And we're going to focus a little bit more on China here. And we're going to focus on China because the prospect for Thucydides' trap. Thucydides' trap is something I've mentioned many times in other videos here, wherein a rising power may well displace an established power. And so these guys may fall. And so there's a lot of tension between the rising power and the established power. And Dr. Graham Allison described this Thucydides trap. And he said that in the last 500 years, according to his analysis, there were 16 incidences of this. And it includes Russia and the United States in one of them. That's one of the 4 out of 16 cases that didn't happen. The 75% of the cases that led to war. And those 4 were special cases, as I have laid out in other videos, for why those didn't occur to war. And one, in the case of Russia, well, they never quite rose. They rose and they fell, basically. And then Russia's never had the economic capacity to supplant the United States. But we can still get into it with them. That's still possible. And there's other prospects for war with countries such as Iran, who don't have that dynamic going on. And we discussed that too. Maybe we're getting more peace with them right now. We may negotiate a deal with them, but Iran's, Israel's thinking about getting them. Israel now that there's prospects for a deal on the table is really talking about putting a hit on Iran, which could still come back and bite us, even though it would be them and not the United States. So all kind of craziness going on. So Thucydides was the Greek historian, the first scientific historian. He wrote things in great detail, and he talked about when Athens was at the prospects of displacing Sparta. In the end, that didn't work out too well for Athens, but Thucydides wrote all about it. So he's technically the first real historian. Or some say his first scientific historian, because he wrote things down very well. I don't know if science is a good term, but I've heard that term, so I'm just repeating that. But anyway, all that said, so let's get back into this. So what Commander Admiral Charles Richard went on to say was this. He said, there's a real possibility that a regional crisis with Russia or China can escalate quickly to a conflict involving nuclear weapons. If they perceived a conventional loss would threaten the regime or state. And so he went on, nuclear employment is not possible. Is kind of how things are looked at. He says, what we need to do is change the way we're looking, because he says that's how our command structure is looking at it right now. Like, it's not possible. He says, we've got to go from that assumption to the assumption that it's a very real possibility, and then we have to act to meet or deter that reality. That's what he said. He said, well, we're just not really taking it serious. He goes on, he says, we cannot approach nuclear deterrence in the same way as we've been doing it. In other words, it must be tailored and evolved for the dynamic environment that we face. Yeah, and it is changing, especially these new weapon systems Russia's coming up with, and the fact that China is now arming up, and we're facing two superpowers, not one. And then he talked about it. He said, hey, we got to be able to react to both countries. He said, increased risk of great power crises or conflict, if left unchecked, could really get us in a lot of trouble. He said that, of course, he said Russia's aggressively modernizing, and China's also on a trajectory to be a strategic peer, meaning at the same level of us and Russia. They've been it's thought of in the past as well. They're just, so minor down there. We're not really adding them into the equation, the dynamic between us and Russia, but all that's changing. So that's kind of where we're at. So he basically, said, hey, we need a unity of effort within the federal agencies and the military command structure and administrations to look at this. And he said, while this is a sobering picture, it's not intended to discourage. Rather, it is meant to highlight the reality and reinvigorate a conversation across the enterprise. That means the enterprise of defense in our country. He said, our challenges are not insurmountable. Now, with that, I agree. I agree with that. And he will add it. I believe that we still have a competitive edge and a qualitative edge over China. So there you go. Now, there's a couple of things. I'm going to share some websites here. I'm going to share some things so you'll know where I'm coming from on these. Come on, hang on. Give me a second. I'm on screens here. Sorry, sometimes it's aggravating when I'm switching around like this, doing a live video. Not live, but I don't have time to edit these things, guys. I don't have time to sleep. I don't have time. I'm bringing this stuff in wee hours a lot of times. It's the only time I get to record this stuff. And it takes a while sometimes to do the research to bring you a video like this. So bear with me, please. This is the U.S. Atomic Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. This is where this comes from. And quite frankly, this video is, this article was written by Henry Manin, who was 50th president of Northwestern University, and Jeremiah Ostreicher. Now, he's an astrophysicist. Okay, that means he knows about planets and stars, not necessarily military affairs. So, okay. Greg, you're a worm man. Well, Greg Allison has spent a lot of time contemplating military stuff. I can show you where I was speaking about military activities at a conference back in 1993. Okay. This has been a lifelong passion of mine, very intense one, in fact. So to know what's going on in the world, so we can be aware. I've always been worried about these things. Okay. So what they're talking about here is, I'm not going to read this article. I might pick out a couple, beans out of it, but basically this article goes into saying that, hey, the real possibility isn't that great, but it's getting bigger. And they also mention here Harvard University's Graham Allison Institute, Thucydides trap, in which there's a drift toward war when an emerging power threatens to displace an existing leading power. These writers are not seeing it so probable. What these writers see is they think the only thing that could lead to war between the United States and China is Taiwan. Taiwan is the critical point of conflict. China asserts its historical right to Taiwan. Oh, they kind of agree with it, don't they? There never was a historical right. The People's Republic of China has never owned or had any control over the island of Taiwan. They were an insurgency that overthrew the Republic of China, which is Taiwan, and those guys went into exile on the island of Taiwan. So, oh well, I've covered that in many videos. So these writers, they don't know history, obviously. But oh well, it's just a university president, some astrophysicist, for Pete's sake. What do you expect? I live in Huntsville, Alabama. We got more PhDs per capita than any place on earth, more engineers per capita, which I am one, than any place on earth, at least any free nation. China may be ahead of us now in that regard, in some city there. But you can't throw a rock in Huntsville, Alabama. They had at least 2 PhDs and 2 engineers. That's just the way it is here. All right. Taiwan is a critical point of conflict. Yeah, that's what it says here. So what this article really boils down to is that we cannot minimize the difficulty of the Taiwan issue. There needs to be both clarity and ambiguity in how the United States deals with Taiwan. The ambiguity is, we need to kind of help them out, but we can't really say what we're going to do. We got to keep China second guessing. That's what that really boils down to, which has been the official policy for a long time. And it goes in here and says, arms sales to Taiwan are sensitive. Our aim is to avoid invasion of Taiwan and the sales of missiles and technologies for defensive purposes. Seem right for defensive purposes. So we're really, that's the whole gist of this article. Keep engaged with Taiwan, but keep it at the defensive level. Help them out and limit it to that. That's sort of whole, there's nothing else in this whole article. That's it. So I think this is very short-sighted. To be honest, I say this is a very short-sighted analysis. Yeah, I don't mind picking on university presidents and astrophysicists. So what? I'll take them toe-to-toe and debate with them in public if I meet them. I'd be happy to. I get them on the channel. I'd be happy if one of them wants to come on the channel. Well, I'll do a live video with them. We can find no other issues where war could plausibly arise between China and the United States. And if we reassert that any armed conflict will lead to global catastrophe, in a more positive vein, the United States should be finding new paths to both cooperate and compete with China. Okay. And then they kind of cracked on the demonization of China by President Trump and former Secretary of State Pompeo. The bellicose language, misguided and counterproductive, according to them. Okay, so decoupling economies with China would be very foolish. Now, well, they did throw one thing in there as something of a solution. Now, you know what? I still think we've got to watch how we trade with them. I've covered this whole idea about the back door from these transformers in China. They should not be allowed in our power grid. I've covered that. I'm probably going to cover that again, not too distant future. One thing that's interesting here that I can't look. There's good people. We're talking about 2 different Chinas, okay? Taiwan, Republic of China, and mainland, the People's Republic of China are 2 different Chinas. They're both Chinese people. In both countries, you're going to find good people with good hearts and smart people in both countries. It's the governance that and particularly in the PRC, because it is so Maoistic now that I will take issue with. So I can show you on that some more. We chose to look into it, but so most universities here, what it's talking about is we should keep the undergraduate students coming, and because they get to come home and go home and then maybe have more familiarity and happier with America. Well, see, that was a philosophy that we really got in bed with China with in the first place. We thought if we opened up more trade and exchange, that they would open up in their society and would change their ways. It's not happened. So already they're throwing out a failed argument. I still think there's some merit to it, at least on the personal level, but you got to screen these people that are coming over to make sure they're not, CCP spies. And also that you got to make sure that they're not in a position where they can spy on sensitive things here in America. Don't give them sensitive positions in this country. This college is not typically sensitive, but some of the research projects are. So there's still something to be said for this argument. I would say you just have to watch it very carefully. Hey, I love Chinese people. Like I said, there's good and bad. I always say this on my channel. There's good and bad people everywhere on earth. Nobody has a monopoly on that, and we've got bad people here too. We've got good people here too, but it's just that bad stuff tends to float up, and especially in it floats, especially in governance, and especially with those governments are like one-party systems, and where tyranny rules the day, and that's the case over there with the PRC. And let me show you something on that just back. I was going to say this for another video, but just real quick, China's terrifying return to Maoism. Okay, guys, they've always been there. That's what this article gets wrong. They actually had an official position to lay low with it for a period of time and then bring it out later. So it says one of the few issues that Democrats and Republicans agree on is People's Republic of China is turned back toward Maoism. Xi Jinping's regime is committed to eradicating the merest possibility that someone might have an independent thought. That sounds kind of familiar, don't it? Is something going on around here? The economy remains a socialist market hybrid, okay, but the CCP has made little effort to limit personal autonomy, except where politics intrudes, which is almost everywhere. Just a hint of ideological disobedience now brings down the full weight of the vast domestic security regime that spends more money than the People's Liberation Army. So their internal military repressing their people spends more money than their military that's to defend their country. That's a sign that something's wrong, my friends. There are no easy policy positions, this says. It's talking about, it's how the current officials starting to talk with Xi Jinping retain their power. Prerequisites, well status. So it's all about how they keep their power. Well, golly gee, it didn't take a rocket scientist to come up with that now, did it? Might know something about being a rocket scientist, right? So it goes on, basically it says, hey, violations of human rights are the norm in the PRC, and the practice of civil liberties and free speech and political freedom don't exist there. China's essentially turned to Maoism. Somewhere in here, basically, it tells you what I've been telling you guys all along, that the primary objective of a dictator, of a tyrant, of someone in control like that, is to stay in control. And their people don't matter. I have said that many times on here, but on my channel. So these guys, finally figured it out, and they wrote it in this article. Yeah, that's in here. I'm not going to read this article any further today. I might go into this further in the future, but let's go over here. So these guys are convinced here that the only thing to worry about is Taiwan, and we can totally manage that situation if we just cooperate with China at some degree and bring over some students and make sure that we just send only defensive weapons to Taiwan. That's which is kind of sort of what we've been doing. Except we do have the freedom of navigation exercises with the Navy going through waters, which internationally, according to all the treaties, we're supposed to be able to do. But there's a bit of a chink in this argument they got here. China threatens war with the Philippines as U.S. pledges support to Manila. And I've covered this actually in a previous video, not from this article, but China's threatening war as it authorizes its warships to open fire on fishers plying trading waters and warns the Philippines. And so, basically this is that little thing where they said, and I mentioned this before, would open fire on foreign vessels, which means anything not theirs within the 9-dash line, even that's claimed by other countries, and destroy illegal structures within the East and South China Seas. So islands that are long being claimed by and even ruled by the World Court and the UN that they belong to Philippines. China's claiming them, and if the Philippines does anything there, they can destroy their structures. Wow. Yes, indeed. So, and we heard pledge of support to Manila. I remember Manila at one time was a, conquered land of the United States after we had a war with the Spanish-American War. At the turn of the 18th, 19th century, we took Cuba and the Philippines and quite a few other places, Guam and Puerto Rico, from that exercise. Right or wrong, that's what it was. But we have good relations. Generally the people in the Philippines love the United States. It's kind of a mystery. I considered we were all that nice to all of them to start with, but the people there generally love the United States, and they speak English, and they speak good English in most of the Philippines, and they're nice people. They're lovely people there. The president of the country, though, thought he could cozy up to this guy because he saw him as the rising power and thought it would be strategically to his advantage to cozy up to him, and it backfired. So these guys aren't interested in anything other than homogeny. They want to take over that region and heck with all their neighbors. It seems to be what they're doing. I mean, God, they're having conflicts with everybody all around them. So they're not really playing nice. And again, it goes back to the return to the Maoism. Well, they've always had it. They were just trying to hide it. They were playing Sun Tzu, lying down and being quiet. Oops, I know. Wow, crazy ads pop up. It's kind of risky going through websites. All right, so here's another article talking about 1949 is their anniversary of when they took over the mainland, the People's Republic of China. Their party, the CCP, it was pre-existed that, and they worked together at some time with the ROC actually. So she might want to take a bite out of you. Watch it, don't get around them. She was kind of happy. All right. How America and China can give peace a chance. This is a two-part article, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I think I'm on part 2, I hope here. It goes on at great length to talk about the difference in weapon systems and how presently most of our weapon systems give us an advantage. But it doesn't really talk about peace until it gets down to the last paragraph, and it's really tenuous. So I was kind of disappointed in this article. And yeah, the whole article is a 2-page article. And this whole thing in the magazine, The National Interest, I like, articles and the different, come from different sources like this. The whole thing boils down to this. The whole article is giving peace a chance, but it only really covered it in one short paragraph out of 2 pages. And that's disturbing. China and the United States will likely remain fixated on each other as potential military competitors for decades to come. I hope we have decades to come. But if relations are prudently managed, they don't have to become actual adversaries in a war. Oh, ding, ding, ding. Didn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one up, right? The 2 countries' respective capabilities, however, will play a role in how their global influence is perceived. That's it. 2 pages, all about how we can have a pathway to peace, and that's all he comes up with. That is it. The other article gave us a little more, even though I think those guys were a little short-sighted. I mean, they thought, well, the only thing could possibly be Taiwan. Well, Taiwan is the main thing. It is the main concern right now. But China is pushing all over the world, and they're extending their belts and roads. There's going to be all kinds of other opportunities for mayhem down the road in Africa, with Australia, with perhaps even New Zealand, but Australia and is one of our allies and dear friends, and there's a big trade war right now going on between Australia and China, and I probably should do a video on that. It's been going on for some time, and it's a tough one. It's a lot worse than what we're seeing with China here in the United States. And it's gravely affecting Australia because China's been their main trading partner, and China has actually taken quite a loss on their side in that trade war too. And there are people suffering because of it on the Chinese side, but the government is willing to push it through because the official needs outweigh the needs of the people, of course. Because they're not really the People's Republic of China. They're the party's people of China. The name says people's, but it's really parties. The Party's Republic of China. It belongs to the CCP. Don't ever forget that. That's a misnomer, the People's Republic. Makes it sound all so wonderful. It's part of the deception. I can tell you, if there's a bill that's going in our Congress and you want to know what it's all about, take the name and then take the opposite of it, and you'll know what the bill is all about. So that's how these things happen, how they come out. So all of this stuff, how America and China can give peace a chance. 2 pages, and that's all it gives. All right, we're going to stop the share here in a minute. Hello. There we are. We're in a situation here where we could get into it with Russia or China. We're really baiting Russia occasionally. So, my point is that Russia's biggest long-term adversary, we might be their immediate adversary because we're poking the bear, but their biggest long-term adversary is China. I think one way to help contain China and make peace with Russia is to do just that, make peace with Russia. Just reach out to them directly and say, hey, look, let's work things out, at least so we can have a mutual understanding and not come to war, and we can kind of stand together against China. And I think that would go a long way. See, not Kissinger, well, yeah, he was involved in it. Nixon went to China originally and made, we were once where we would not even talk with China. We wouldn't negotiate with them or anything. And China was kind of isolated, the red China back in the old days. And Richard Nixon went to them and started cutting deals with them in order to use them against the Russian government, the Soviet Union, because at that time the Soviet Union was quite an adversary, and we needed all the leverage we could get working with them. And so we went to China because China was a very fairly weak but big country, and that worked at that time. But now China has grown vastly and eclipsed all of that. China's got immense power today, immense power, far beyond the power that Germany and Japan had together. And they're the manufacturing center of the world. We were the manufacturing center of the world back in World War II. We have won every war we've ever won by attrition, by outproducing the enemy. How do you do that when the main enemy produces more than everybody else in the world now, if they are the enemy? Let's hope that we can work these things out without coming to blows. We don't know that will happen, though. And China's been very aggressive right now. China's image is the dragon. They are red, red communists. We always call them Red China, and we refer to them as the dragon quite a bit. They identify with dragon. So it's kind of like the eagle for America, the bear for Russia. Well, China's the dragon, red dragon. There's I got a book back here that talks about a red dragon rising up out of the sea, and in the ancient Hebrew text, the sea was the Gentile nations. Is that happening today? Is it rising up in power and reaching out throughout the world with their tentacles, the Belts and Roads Initiative, which is going to give them eventually the military bases and all kind of other operational capabilities? I've mentioned this in other videos. If you're in a country and you're cutting these kind of deals with that government, you better watch out, because you're subject to having a jackboot on your neck one day. That's liable to backfire on you. So, my friends, these are things to think about, things to get ready for. The best way to prepare for it is to know about, what? But I do support this idea of getting students over here and talking with them. And if you meet somebody, be friends with them. Most of them are good people. Statistically, on a person-to-person average, they got just as many good people statistically as any other country. People are people anywhere on earth. People are people in their core. Now, you might be seeing the wrapping on the book and judging the book by its cover, but at the core, we're all the same. Everybody's got a heart. Everybody cries and laughs the same way. We do this for yes and that for no. And actually, the word mama is around the world. Even in Oriental countries, they say mama. That's amazing. Their culture's been separated from ours for a long time. We even have, the people of the world, we're all, pretty much, we're modern human, Homo sapiens. But, we did interbreed a little differently. Europeans with Neanderthal, and, we all have interbred some with different, other races of human beings, or perhaps species, however you want to look at it. They with Devotians, or whatever you say that. So there's been a little bit of that. So they got a little bit different lineage, but we still say mama. We still do this and this. And we're people. We're all people. We're all human beings. And we should all be able to make peace and learn to live together and to develop a peaceful future. But when you've got a government that's so heck bent on homology, we've been that way to a big degree, but it's so aggressive, and so repressive to their own people, and aggressive at the same time. They want the world, really. then we got to watch it. We got to be careful. This is like dealing with, just imagine if Germany, Hitler's Germany, was the manufacturing center of the world and had 1.3 billion people at their disposal instead of being a small country in Europe, manufacturing, but far from the world's manufacturing center or energy center. You see what I'm saying? But there is hope if we can wait this thing out, not come to immediate blows. The real plan to peace is you talk to these people and they come over here, make friends, and plant the seeds of freedom in their mind and their soul. So, one day y'all could, through Gandhian type procedures or something, get enough of y'all together, y'all can take down the CCP from its power and have freedom. Unite with ROC that way through freedom. Maybe bring the ROC in the mainland. They are a free elected country, and they would take that kind of government into mainland China if they could. And that would liberate everyone in China. It would be better for everyone on earth. Chinese people, first and foremost. I'm sure the Tibetans would be happy. They'd probably get autonomy again and freedom. The Uyghurs, the Inner Mongolians, there's a lot of people in China that are repressed, including a lot of religious people. Muslims, Christians, the Falun Gong are all repressed. By the way, Christian population in China is projected to be at the end of this decade, which is just, 9 years away now, over 300 million people. Like the population of the United States, Christian. And it's growing at 8% per year. And they got a fair Muslim population, the Falun Gong. It may be that the days of that regime, the CCP, may be numbered. Even though they have such stringent controls with their social credit system and all these other things, with the fact that they spend more on their internal army than they do their external army. See, that's a sign that things are bad right there. And there's another sign. See people trying to break into China to live there. In fact, Taiwan, Hong Kong, they want no part of it. They demonstrate, they protest, they arm themselves in Taiwan. No, we don't want no part of it. They don't want no part of it. Yeah, and they've been closely connected. People going back and forth, but they know what's on the other side. They don't know part of it. Think about that. All you young guys think socialism is the answer to everything. It's been tried 25 times and failed 25 times in the world. And no, Norway's not the socialist country you think they are. So there's a lot more to discover on that. So that's a whole nother topic. But guys, girls, the key thing is that we need to hang out and hope for freedom and peace, and that we can wait this thing out. But we can't bank on it. If, your part you can do is, if you meet Chinese people, be nice to them first and foremost. Be nice to them. You don't know who they are. We got so many people, oh, they're that, and just be mean to them. That person could be a real good person, and they could maybe be the person that will go back and make a lot of change for the good on the other side. Give them a chance. Give them a benefit. Be nice to them. But if you find out they're a spy, then you need to report it. If you, in your conversations, discover they're over here spying, or they're trying to foment trouble, I did a video where I said there was 10,000 autoseers from China intercepted in Lexington, Kentucky. Somebody was trying to make trouble here. So there's that going on too. Be aware of it. That's why we got to be careful who comes in. We need to screen people coming in. That's why we need a border, so we can screen people coming in. I don't have a problem with people coming in, but we just need to be able to screen them and vet them. That's the key thing. Screen and vet the people. Heck, we need workers. But especially in the agricultural sectors of the economy. But we also need jobs for the people here. So both are true. All right. Enough said. I just hope everybody gets ready, prepares. Pray and hope for the best, work for the best. I start this Freedom Restoration Foundation. Check links to that to try to preserve it and restore our freedoms. We've got this tribe network going. We're working it. It's taking a little bit longer than I hoped, but we're working it. So we're doing these things. But my friends, that's part of it. We just got to work it. Do what you can. Be the change you want to see. And so I know you watch this far. I said, Greg, I will be the change I want to see. And I hope you'll do that just as you'll be active. Or if you don't block Greg, that's Greg, I'm just going to sit down and watch the TV or play games or what. Just watch stuff on my computer. If you don't want to be part of a change, just tell me that. It don't take it a lot. Sometimes it just takes a few phone calls, just a little action, you know. All right, my friends. But I would say prepare. Get yourself ready for bad times in case they come. If you don't, hey, you get great camping supplies. Get out and see the world. Do something. Have some fun, too. Smell the roses along the way. With all that, I'm going to say thank you